Hello, folks. I'm Yolanda Johnson-Bryant, and you're watching The Other Side of the Dash. Thanks for joining me today, folks. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, share this channel, give us a thumbs up, and comment below if you think these videos that I am bringing here on the other side of the dash are very informational to you as a person living on the other side of your dash. Today, I have a very dear friend and my real estate agent in Greensboro, North Carolina, and she is living her best life on the other side of her dash. She is a real estate agent. Her name is Sondra J. Wright, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you guys more about herself. Sondra, welcome to the show, by the way.
Well, thank you for having me, Yolanda. Hello, fellow Dashers. It's a pleasure to be with you. As Yolanda said, I'm Sondra Wright in the Triad area of North Carolina. Been a real estate broker for a few years, broker of my own firm, and I absolutely enjoy it. I won't say that I love real estate. That's not what I love. I love advocacy and making sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate and have ethical representation as they're out here trying to buy or sell their homes. That's what my passion is. My passion is people, not the real estate itself. And so it was a pleasure, Yolanda, to help you and Greg transition from North Carolina to Texas, because it's not always about buildings and bricks. It's people's lives are connected to these transactions. And so each transaction means something very personal to that family or that individual that you're working with. And so that's what I love to connect with. So again, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And I love hearing that because she is correct. Sondra, and we won't get into everything that Sondra does. She's been very modest, but she is an advocate for several things. Many of the things are on the other side of the dash that are not even related to real estate. But she does love helping people. And I just want to give her a shout out. So if you're in the Triad and you need to buy or sell your house, look Sondra up because she is going to help you. So I've sold and bought houses before, but I've never had the level of care. So I didn't know what I was doing because the agents that I had before were just, and I didn't know what to look for. So Sondra, when we sold our house, she told us things. We were trying to get this, that, and fixed. And she's like, no, that adds no value. Do this, do that, and whatever. And so once we did that, we had a budget and we pretty much stuck with our budget except for a couple things, but she kept us on our budget on what we were going to repair in our house or fix up and what we were not. And also, so when the house went on the market, Sondra, I think the house went on the market that Friday. And I'm going to tell you guys that next day we had multiple offers. Our house was sold within 24 to 48 hours. We thought we were going to have weeks on the market. That house was sold. Sondra, we would go out when she would do a showing. We would go out, go eat or go to whatever. And she would call and say, don't come back. We got another showing. Don't come back. We got it. So, we would stay out all day. But that house sold. Is that typical for you, Sondra? Because I know it's not typical for every agent, but I know you like to hustle and bustle. Is that normal for you?
Well, that was a year and a few months ago, right? That was a year and a few months ago.
It was not this past December, but the December before that, yes.
Yes. And what was happening is that we were really just on the cusp of this kind of crazy real estate market that we're in now, that if you had a home in a certain price point, then you had a home that had very low inventory. So there was not a lot of homes like yours on the market. but we had a lot of buyers looking for homes like that. And so the timing of it really was just absolutely, and it was inevitable that it would happen that way. I absolutely love going above and beyond in my representation of a home,
And you did.
in my marketing, in my marketing of a home. I use every tool available to me to make sure that I get that home in front of as many people as I can. But Yolanda, you and Greg had an absolutely beautiful home. I mean, you were offering something that people were going to naturally and very organically be attracted to. And so I think it was just a combination of events. It was timing, it was location, it was the home itself. One of the things that you touched on briefly was that, you know, where do you spend your money when you're looking at, you know, doing those repairs or upgrades or whatever. And oftentimes for home sellers who've lived in that home and who've loved on that home, when you sell it, you want to begin to do things to it as though you're going to keep living there.
Okay.
And so there is a point in which you've overdone that and it won't bring you any value back. So it's very important not to just throw money to the wind, but to put those dollars in areas that are going to net you a return. And so that's why I was very careful with you and Greg about where you were spending money, because I know you. I know you, and I know that you're very specific. You like things done a certain way, but you were about to head in a direction as though you all were going to continue to live in that home for the next 10 years. And that was not the goal.
And I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to touch briefly on this topic. And you can answer it any way you choose to answer, or you can say, I'm not going to touch that. But when it comes to decorating the home, you told us to take a lot of the personal aspects out of the home. There have been a lot of things going on, especially here in Texas, but around the country, where, let's just say, an African American may have pictures of their family, or, you know, African American art on the wall. And when they and they would get a certain value for their home or certain offers, but when they took those personal mementos down, that their house value increased like 10,000. Is that an actual thing? If you don't want to touch it in that aspect, maybe tell us why it's important not to put personal things, like you just said, as if you were going to be staying in the house, because you're selling to someone else. So tell us why that's so important.
Well, it's important that when a potential buyer walk into that space, that it's a space that they're able to see themselves and their families living in, not so much of you. If there's so much of you there, it crowds their ability to be able to see themselves living in that space. So it's very important that you minimize yourself in that space. But unfortunately, yes, it is a thing. Sometimes we have just judgments about things. Sometimes people bring biases into a situation, and that does not end just because you're looking for a home.
Right.
I have walked into homes, for example, with people, Christians, for example, beautiful home. It might have been exactly what they were looking for, but if they see certain religious symbols, a Buddha, for example, it might be a complete turnoff for them. And there's no way, they don't care that that home has rang every bell or checked every box on that list, because they saw a symbol that was so different than their beliefs. It became a deal breaker for them. And so the same concept happens across all kinds of lines, whether they're racial lines, whether they're religious beliefs, or whether they're political beliefs, things like that, you may want to put away so that people won't have anything to judge except for that piece of property.
Exactly. And let's go ahead and get into the market. The markets, I'll let you in a minute elaborate on the market there in the Triad. But here in Texas, things are just so, people are doing things like adding timeshares or vacation houses, or tons, they're paying $100,000 more above what the house is selling for in order to get the houses, because I'm sure, like you said before, the inventory is not there. And the inventory, you know, it's very limited. So it's going really crazy here. And just briefly to touch on our story, you know our story, Sondra, about how we had initially had our dream house built, and we were waiting on the transfer from Greg's job, and we asked for an extension, a week extension, and they would not give it to us. And we asked for it 30 days before our closing date. And the day of our closing, we got the okay to do the transfer, but they had already sold our house to someone else for, I'm sure, a higher price. And so we were back down here that day looking for another house, and we got the house that we live in. And it's ironic because the house that we had built is only 5 houses down from where we live now. Isn't that funny? So
Yes, yeah.
with that craziness, so now people are just paying these premiums just to get in a house. And I remember telling people, if you can't make it in Texas, you can't make it anywhere, because the cost of living is so low. The income, there's no state income tax, and the houses are just affordable. I cannot say that any longer. How is the market doing in the Triad?
Well, we, Yolanda, have many of the same market conditions that you have there in Texas. Limited inventory, way more buyers than we have properties. And so we see the same thing happening. It's very competitive. Properties going for, several $1,000s above asking. And I don't mean several single digit $1,000. I mean several double digit thousands of dollars above the asking price. And so then that begs the question of, well, what happens if this property does not appraise? And it's important as a buyer that you understand what that means, because you've just offered someone $50,000 above what their agent has already predetermined the comps are selling for. And so if your appraisal doesn't come in at the price that you've just contracted for, then there's a shortfall. And so who's going to pay that difference? Because the lender is only going to loan you they're up to the appraised value. And so it's very important that you have an in-depth conversation with your agent about what that means for me if this property does not appraise. And not only have the conversation, but make sure that you have the resources to pull from to be able to make up that difference. Because if you don't, here in North Carolina, what that means is that you've left your due diligence fee on the table. And due diligence fees right now for homes that are priced mid 200s get anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 in due diligence fee. That is the amount of money that you give the buyer up front, just for the privilege of them taking that house off the market for you to do your investigations. And if anything goes wrong in that transaction and the buyer cannot or decides not to move forward, they don't get that money back. So it's very.
Go ahead, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, so I was saying it's very important that when you are bidding, because it's very much become a bidding war, and you decide to give an offer above asking, that you have the resources to be able to make up that difference should that property not appraise.
So now I have two things. One, is the due diligence a standard real estate procedure, or does it vary from state to state? And I ask you that because I remember you talking about the due diligence and our situation, but when we moved here, there was no such thing as due diligence, or it was not mentioned. We did put our earnest money down in, but that did not take it off the market, because as you know, and I asked you this, they were still showing our house even though we had put our earnest money down, and they were building it for our specifications. And that was how this other person was able to come and buy it. So one, is the due diligence everywhere? And two, am I correct in understanding that, okay, you have the conversation with your real estate agent, you want to go ahead, you don't want to lose this house, so you're willing to pay 50,000 more than John Doe or whatever. And we know that our house is our biggest asset. However, if you choose to go proceed with that, you have to have this house and you pay above and it does not appraise. Is it safe to assume that you've entered into a mortgage or a home in the red, as opposed into actually making, what's the word I'm looking for, equity in your home?
You lumped a lot of questions
I'm
into
sorry.
that one, so that's okay. So let me go backwards. I think the first part of your question had to do with due diligence and whether that's standardized from state to state. And this is real estate, so there is nothing standardized from state to state. One of the reasons that your North Carolina license only allows you to practice real estate in the state of North Carolina is because real estate is very specific to a locality, to a market. The jurisdictions are different. The statutes are different, laws are different. And so you cannot take this North Carolina license and practice real estate in any other state with it other than North Carolina. So there is no standardization when it comes to real estate from state to state. Oftentimes, however, in new construction, that's what you and Greg's home was a new construction home, is that we don't see the due diligence fee in new construction. So you were right there. It's pretty commonplace to only see your deposit due or your earnest money with a new construction. And that's even here in North Carolina with new construction. So we don't typically see the due diligence with new construction. What was the second part of that question, Yolanda?
The second one was if you go ahead and assume the responsibility of paying above the market or what the house might appraise for, just because you don't want to lose that house and you want to beat out the competition.
What does that mean for the value?
Exactly. Is it safe to assume that you automatically enter into a situation where you're already in the red, in a situation where you should enter in the black, considering that your home is your biggest asset?
It is an investment. It is an absolute investment. And one of the reasons that people are willing to take that chance right now is because you almost have no choice. If you're going to own a piece of real estate, the competition is so fierce that it really does not leave you many options. But because it is real estate, what we hope is that the market will remain constant enough where even if you don't achieve full appraisal value now, because you're going to be occupying that home, you're going to be paying that mortgage down, and with the passage of time, the value will organically increase, then you'll be able to catch that up.
Gotcha.
And so not achieving full value right now is not the worst thing that can happen, because again, as market conditions change, as market conditions continue to improve, I'm an optimist, and so I'm going to say continue to improve, then the thought process is that you will eventually catch up any shortfall in the value.
Okay. And let me ask you this. What are some of the things that a buyer or even a seller should be looking for when they're trying to land? I don't like that word, but you get what I'm saying. A real estate agent. And I ask this because, like I said, I've had real estate agents in the past that just they didn't educate me. They didn't care. They wanted their commission. And then there's some like you who go above and beyond, I feel. And then I have an agent here that I feel went above and beyond. However, I do feel like maybe if we had her go to this builder, we wouldn't have lost the first house. So what are some key things, you don't have to go through all of them because I know there's a lot, but some key things that a person should be looking for in a real estate agent when buying and selling a home?
Well, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who is familiar with the market. That's one of the main things. Somebody who does not mind taking the time to answer your questions and explain things. I think sometimes I feel like I over-explain just because it's important for me that you don't sleepwalk through this process. I feel that an educated buyer or seller is a powerful buyer or seller. And so I like to lay it out there, lump sum in the beginning, do a complete overview, and then revisit each section as we're going through it. So just make sure that you have someone who you believe is patient, and let your instinct guide you. You don't always know everything about anybody that you contract to do business with up front. But what you need to understand is that if it doesn't feel right to you, very rare are our instincts wrong. And so just get a feel for who a person is. make sure that it's someone that you feel that you can work with. Talk to references if they, have done some real estate transactions in the past. Ask if they might be able to have a conversation with some of the people that you've done business with. But I think referrals is just a really good way of knowing that you're getting someone solid in the industry that you can trust and do business with. And if it doesn't feel right, just explain that it's not working out for you, and then that you would like to terminate the agreement and move on and get somebody else that you feel that you can work with that will take care of you. Good. Don't be afraid to do that.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people don't know that they can terminate their contract and go
you
to
can absolutely terminate it. That's right.
So let's talk about one more thing, and we'll go ahead and I really want to have you back because there's so much more information to talk about. But I know your time is valuable. But I do want to talk about, I have talked to several people who do not understand the difference between an appraisal and an inspection. They figure if they get the appraisal, they don't need an inspection, when they are actually entirely two different things. Can you tell us the difference between those two things?
That is a great question, Yolanda. And to your point, people get these two mixed up all of the time, okay? The home inspection is done to help you understand what the condition of the home is in.
Right.
I tell people, this is what I tell my clients, the home inspection is not to make an older home new again. That's not what it's for. A home inspection is to reveal anything that might give you pause, anything that might give you concern, anything that might make you want to run from
like a bad roof, right?
Exactly. That's what the home inspection is for. Are there any structural issues that might end up costing you a significant amount of money down the road? Again, it's not to make an older home new again, but we know what we can see visibly when we go into a home. There's so many things that we can't see because we don't crawl up in the attic or go into the crawl space, or we're not able to look at that home with the critical eye that a licensed, trained inspector is able to. And so they go in, they do a thorough inspection, they do a visual inspection. They want to know what's going on with the plumbing. They want to know what's going on with the HVAC, with the floors, behind the walls, with windows, doors, things that you don't typically look for. So that is the home inspection. You will receive a home inspection report with the inspector's findings as well as photos. Now, every home purchase in North Carolina is as is. There is no requirement on a seller to make a repair. During your due diligence period, you may negotiate for repairs, but there is no requirement on a seller to agree to repair anything. So you want to be as certain as you can about a property before you go into it. But there are many things that we don't know and can't determine without that home inspection.
Right.
Okay. So that's what the home inspection report is for. It's about the condition of the home. The appraisal is what the bank orders, because the bank wants to know that they're not loaning you more money than what that house is worth. So the bank will order that appraisal. The buyer pays for it. The appraiser goes, looks at that home and compares it to other homes similarly sold nearby to come up with a value of that property. So two completely different things. They serve two different purposes. The bank orders the appraisal to make sure that the value is good, and the home buyer orders the appraiser that orders the inspection to make sure that they're getting a sound, solid structure that they're not going to have to spend a whole lot of money coming out of the gate to make repairs for.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that. Like I said, people do get those confused, as you've confirmed. But Sondra, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to tell people how they can reach you. I do want you back because you've given us a wealth of information, and we just could not fit it all in this particular meeting or this particular interview, but I do want to have you back sometime soon. But in the meantime, please tell our listeners and our watchers, how they can reach you, how they can employ you as their real estate agent, because I strongly suggest you. I know several real estate agents in the triad, but Sondra Wright. So tell them how they can reach you.
I thank you, Yolanda. I appreciate you for that. If anybody has any additional questions about real estate, feel free to shoot me an email, triadsbestrealty@gmail.com. TRIADSBEST realty@gmail.com, or feel free to give me a call or text me at 336-669-2702. It would be my pleasure to answer the questions or serve in any way that I can.
Sondra, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Yolanda. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.